Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 17 of the Mask and Mimicry Tabletop Role-Playing Podcast. As always, I have Brand with me here tonight.
Yes.
And today, we're going to be talking about enhancing online play, which is a particularly pertinent topic over the last year. A lot of people have become fairly expert at running online games, much
A lot of
to
people
their
have
chagrin, perhaps.
have had to become experts at it, unfortunately.
I do apologize for people that are here live. Twitch seems to be having some issues. We're got a bit of an unstable connection, so there is a definite lag between what we're saying and when it's finally going through of like 30
A
seconds.
few minutes.
It's a bit. So hopefully that won't cause any problems. We'll go ahead and start off with a question for chat. I asked this on Twitter earlier, and I only asked it today, so I only got like one response, and I had a nice conversation with somebody. But just what are your best tricks for use when playing tabletop games online? You know, do you have any tips or life hacks to help improve the experience? So be thinking about that. Go ahead and throw it into chat if you've got anything. And we're just going to kind of go into these various core challenges. I think I'd like to just list what we have so far, what we think are some of these major issues. I've got kind of a top three. Talking over each other. It's always an issue when you're not in person. Energy and connectedness and body language kind of all encapsulated as one thing, which I don't have really a better term for, but it's like, I think connectedness is really it. Like how in sync you all are, being able to feed off of each other and stuff is really
That's just
hard.
presence. Everyone's
online.
present. It's all in one.
Yeah. And distractions.
Yep.
Do you have any to add to that list?
I mean, that's a good solid. That accounts for a lot of other more kind of subgroups, I think, as well.
They're kind of broad, yeah.
Yeah. I think that really accounts for a lot of it. No, like nothing as broad as those three. Those seem to cover most of everything.
All right. So in that case, let us, I guess, go into that first one. Talking over each other. Now, this is something that we've talked about in a few of our episodes on and off. The problem of being online and tumbling over each other as you're kind of vying for RP real estate, vying for time.
Screen time.
And it's something that is problematic to fix, to improve on. I mean, we've talked about being courteous, because it's going to happen. And it's something we try to employ here doing a podcast. If you talk over somebody, stop. Just stop talking and let them speak, apologize, whatever, depends on the situation, but just
give the go ahead.
Yeah. Let somebody else speak for a minute.
Yeah. I think that's brought about largely by just not seeing someone's mouth prepared to open or, a hand going up and having that presence of being able to see them. Certainly
the lack of body
makes
language
that more difficult. Yeah.
And with that, video is a good way potentially to resolve that. And that's something that I think is going to come up as a theme pretty regularly. Even though with like our games currently, we don't use video.
No.
We've tried a few times, and I'll get into that in a minute, because that's its own whole problem. But I think also with talking, I think part of the issue with talking over each other is the only thing you can really do besides trying to be just courteous and letting people talk, is making people mindful that it's a thing, encouraging people to participate, talking with everybody and reminding them like, hey, you're online. It's a we all need to try not to talk over each other, but you need to try to give other people time to speak, give other people occasions to jump in and do stuff. Because my concern with trying to rectify it by then going, by the way, don't always jump in and talk over people. You want to give people time to speak, is then you're almost encouraging people to not talk and to hold back and to just leave dead air while they're going, well, is someone else going to do something?
Yeah. And it's hard to get around. There are cases where I've had, people come to me in my campaign, be like, I had hoped to do a thing, but conversation just kind of steamrolled and went a certain direction that makes the thing I was waiting on doing now completely irrelevant, and forget about it kind of thing. And that can be alleviated maybe by everyone, DM included, just leave a few seconds gap in between someone else saying something instead of just proactively jumping in to continue. Just give a moment to see if anyone pipes up. If no one does, then do your thing. If everyone's at least on the same page, as give a short pause after someone says something, see if anyone jumps in, and then do your thing.
Yeah, it's tough though, because I think that the understanding of how much is a reasonable pause or break varies by person, because some of us don't need that much. Like I'm usually prepped if I got something I want to say. As soon as someone's done, I'm like, and I'm sliding right up in here. I've considered some other things, like passingly, like is there like a good way to maybe cue up that you want to speak, like not necessarily as a requirement, but like like raising your hand, like is there like a way we can have like a button or something for people who aren't as bold to jump in and be like, I'm gonna talk now, to basically ping or like raise a hand and be like, I have a thing to say, so that then people can see that and be like, oh, okay, I will give you a moment here. And I don't know if something like that would work.
I think you'd have to like tailor a system around the setup your group has to really make use without also distracting from the other things that exist in that online setup as well.
Yeah, but like maybe during like social role play, if you're using something like Roll20, like everyone, instead of like their character icons or something, you could have like a box or something, like it's like the talk box, and somebody could move themselves up there if they really wanted to say something while someone else is monologuing or something. And so people could maybe see that and be like, okay, I know that person has something they want to say. Like a part of me is like, I don't like the idea of being like, you have to raise your hand to talk. But on the other hand, I'm like, would that possibly fix some of those issues where some people are quiet and they're not comfortable diving in and doing and just adding stuff,
Yeah. And that's kind of what this is all about, is finding ways to alleviate problems that don't necessarily normally exist at the table. So it may not be the most opportune thing to do, but if it gets things going and keeps the group more socially together in conversation, then if it works, do it.
Yeah. And to some extent, I mean, that also does happen at the tabletop. And so some of the same solutions can help as well. You always have quiet players, especially newer players, when you're playing live. And so, having people be more mindful of that, having the storyteller and other players try to intentionally call on them and bring them into the story some, not all the time, but, occasionally being like, so Varsuvius, what do you think of that?
Yeah. Player cues.
Just to give them a chance to at least go, oh, or actually say something or whatever they want to do to help keep them involved. And especially for newer players, that can help to get them more accustomed to speaking up.
Sure.
So I did want to talk about problems with video, because this is something we know well. Because I think we both agree that having video while playing tabletop online is desirable and better. because you can actually see people. You can, to some extent, get some of those bodily cues and things. It
Yeah.
alleviates a number of the things we're going to talk about. But we don't use it in our
No.
games currently for a couple
Not right
reasons.
now, anyway.
For one, it works best, I feel, when you have two monitors. Not all of our players necessarily have two monitors when they're playing, so they can't have one that they throw video on and leave up all the time, and then one for, the game stuff. And so, and that is the thing with video. Unless you have it up all the time where you can see people, it doesn't really accomplish what you want it to accomplish.
And that problem boils down to interface issues with all the systems that exist, whether it's Roll20, Fantasy Grounds, other things. Just bad interfacing for their video integration, plain and simple. It's difficult. It's hard.
It's hard to set up, like Roll20, for example. It's a real pain to set up. It doesn't work very well when you set it up because we kept having people get disconnected from video. Their video wouldn't show up, and so on and so forth. And the performance was awful. It just ate up so much memory trying to run video through Roll20. For whatever reason, it is not optimized for it at all. And, you really almost more need something like Zoom that has all the tabletop stuff you need built into it. Like, if Roll20 somehow built a thing that just runs in Zoom instead of on its own webpage, that would be, that would maybe be a thing.
Yeah, and then with a third-party system of any kind, even if other systems also had like overlays of all the individual cameras of each person, you're competing with the interface of the native system you're playing in. Roll20 has left and important stuff for everyone, left and right side of screen. Yeah. And then the map in the middle, you kind of have to top or bottom is really all you have to work with for positioning those things, and becomes a hassle without that second monitor.
Yeah, and it kind of works, like the layout for it actually kind of works in Roll20 because it puts it all at the bottom under kind of over the top of the map, but it only works because the video cameras are very small.
Yeah.
The video space is very small. So if you have a big monitor, then that works pretty well. Like, it works fine for me because I have a huge monitor. But again, if you try to use something like we've tried, Google Hangouts was awful. We tried Discord performance and just dropping people from video and everything. It was terrible. We've yet to see a really good solution for it. I do actually feel like Zoom has potential. But the problem is you have to pay for it. Someone has to be paying for Zoom. Otherwise, you're going to get kicked out in 45 minutes. Because for people, at least, that don't have two monitors, if they put Zoom and minimize it, it at least puts the current speaker up in the corner of their screen, which wouldn't necessarily obstruct too much for, like, Roll20. And you wouldn't be able to see everybody if you only have one monitor, but you could at least see whoever's currently talking. I feel like that has some potential, but you got to pay for it.
Yeah.
The other thing I thought of was trying to get everybody to maybe use their phones for video, like not for the webcam, but I guess if you could use your webcam to be on call, but then have it show up on your phone to show everyone else. I don't know how you would do that, but maybe. And some people, I'm sure, would be like, I don't have a charge cord for my phone. Yeah, it's going to die on me in the middle of the RP. Because there's always a problem.
Yeah, someone just needs to make a good software with those things in mind. Someone with programming knowledge needs to make a online tabletop-friendly software.
For sure. We've got ones, they're just not good enough. None of them are. And for some reason, my thing just added a green bar to my... Okay, there we go. It went away. Zoom added a little pop-up message to the top of my video. I was like, stop that. Go away. What are you doing? Because it was showing up on stream. Anyway, forgot what I was going to say now. So
Video interfacing, make a program.
it doesn't help for other tabletop games. Alrighty, everyone. We are back
with a vengeance.
Sorry about that. My internet decided it was going to shut itself off. I have been working on trying to identify and troubleshoot why my internet suddenly decides to turn itself off on occasion. And haven't been able to figure it out yet.
Conspiracies.
It happens. It only happens like once every other week. And yet it always seems to happen when I'm streaming something. So I don't know what that says. It makes me feel like it's my ISP's fault.
Possible.
Because it's only when I'm streaming stuff. And then all of a sudden it's like click. But anywho, we are returned. So, yeah. I'm going to give it a minute because I don't think anyone's on right now. There's a man with no screen name.
Yeah, basically.
ISP, you mean? Yeah, for real. So, what I was saying when I got cut off was this doesn't really help other tabletop games, but I still think, my personal theory is that is what D&D Beyond are building towards. That they are slowly adding, because they added in dice that you can roll. They've added in different avatars and like character picks and images and stuff from different things. And you now can unlock custom dice patterns when you buy certain things and stuff. And so the whole
combat encounter tracker,
initiative tracker. Yeah, initiative tracker.
Why? Why go through the work if you're at a table with your friends to do that when rolling dice is so much more fun than hitting a button on a screen?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, there's some of it I could still see useful at a table, like the initiative tracker, having everybody be able to have their phone up and see that. That's cool. I mean, you could also just have a stand with a flag, but table space is sometimes problematic in live. I mean, like, my table's tiny. But some of that stuff, like dice, virtual dice, are not nearly as satisfying as rolling actual dice. If I'm on a tabletop, I want my dice and I want to roll them on the table. So I do kind of feel like they're eventually gonna do a 180 on Roll20 and kind of shaft them and be like, no, we're not giving you any more of our content.
Yeah,
and
I mean, they'd be doing that with everyone.
Ourselves.
They have deals with Fantasy Grounds and Roll20 and other third parties.
I do think they're a ways off, though. Like, I don't think they're rushing into it, which gives me hope that maybe they'll produce something that's well thought out and runs much better than Roll20. Because if they could do that, if they could get something that actually runs well, like incorporates video well and everything, which Roll20 very much does not, I'd be like, sold.
We're moving.
Moving over. Ideally, if they could make something that would actually, similarly to like Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds and stuff, can play other systems too besides just D&D. I would not care if it's the D&D Beyond system. I'd be like, fine, I don't care. I'll play Vampire on your platform. Cool.
Yeah, I think part of the importance of the video in general being such an element to these platforms and wishing that they did a better job is you have people from across the world who play with you, not just down the street, even though you still can't see them right now. Even if you could, you still have other people, other friends you've made potentially who live in Australia or live in France, who just can't be there with you. And your only option is to play online.
And that's actually something that I've wondered with what we talked about before about talking over each other. I've actually wondered if with the internet connection, if lag isn't a part of that issue sometimes, like with both talking over each other or
latency.
People not speaking because there's a gap. And I'm like, and like you've said, we've had people that are like, well, no one left enough gap for me to speak. And I'm like, we paused. There was a break. We were like, is anyone going to talk? Huh? And then no one piped up. But I'm like, is latency an issue? I don't know if
It
that's
could
going to be
be.
a factor where we think, oh yeah, there was like a whole 2 seconds, and they're sitting there like,
Yeah.
chat finally caught up, and now they're talking again.
Especially if you consider it like MMO servers. You know, you have East Coast, West Coast, UK specific servers, Australian servers, or oceanic servers, etc. That could certainly play an issue with Discord. If you're on Discord, for instance, with what server they're using to connect with you and what they hear versus when you're saying it.
Yeah. Now, I would imagine if that were the case, you would get more, not so much like, I would imagine logically, like that wouldn't contribute as much to people just not speaking at all, because then your resuming talking would still be lagged out as well.
Yeah.
But for like people talking over you inadvertently, especially like if someone talks and then they keep talking, because if there's a latency issue, they don't know you've started talking yet,
Yeah.
and so they're just running over you. Like that could maybe be a thing, especially with like international players, and things like Discord servers, and depends on where that
You're
server's
factoring
located.
in like headphone volumes if you're wearing headphones. I don't when I DM, just because. But other people might wear headphones and maybe they're not picking someone's volume up. And you have, at least with Discord, you know, the ability to control everyone's volume slider independently, which is really good. But maybe you're just not hearing them and you're speaking over them, because in particular Discord, when two people are speaking, never really works right. You can't necessarily define who's speaking or what's being said. It's just garbled mess when two people are talking at the same time.
Yeah, and I mean, there's that is definitely a technological issue as well. Is headphones or no headphones? Because depending on the technology you're using, not using headphones means you're going to have feedback and all kinds of issues, which is generally why I always use headphones. But it can also be an issue because, like, I have been trying to get halfway decent at using an Irish accent for characters. It's a forever struggle because I'm very much not good at it, and no, I'm not going to do it right now. It's one of the things that like I wrote off for the longest time. I was like, I will never do it because it's awful. Whereas I could do a couple of accents pretty okay, but not that one at all. And so I've been trying to work on it. I cannot do it at all with headphones on. It
It's hard to hear
screws
yourself.
it up horribly.
Yeah.
And so that's a thing.
Especially with good headphones, which most of us being gamers, we go for, you know, some more expensive headphones that sound dampening. You know, it's hard to, you hear your vibrations in your voice, but it's hard to actually hear your voice. And you get into that rhythm and it becomes difficult. I know exactly what you're talking about. I get the same way.
So there are some other issues with video and using it. One that I think you have, even if you can manage to implement video, is most people don't talk into their webcam. So you end up spending a lot of time looking at the tops of their heads while they're looking at the screen or reading something, and
like
you're just staring at exactly. You're just like staring at the top of their head or staring at the side of their face, which isn't necessarily a huge problem. It's just it makes it a little awkward.
Yeah. There's also a privacy element to it. You're playing a lot of times in the comfort of your own room. Can, instead of at a table designated for playing, you know, your tabletop system, and maybe people are a little or a lot of particular about what they let other people see in their room or something, you know. It's just a thing. It's a privacy thing.
When we're playing and not on video, I am wearing pajamas. I am totally dressed down. You put me on camera, I'm like, I gotta put clothes on and stuff.
Exactly.
Okay. I don't really care what you see behind me, but
there's a presentation element to it that some people just may not want to put the effort into.
Yeah, and it's weird, and it's kind of weird, but some people are more uncomfortable on video, I think, than they are in person for some
Mm-hmm.
reason. And I can kind of feel that a little bit. Like sometimes it does feel like it's easier to forget that other people can see you when you're on video. And so like I'm afraid I'm gonna do something like
Oh, I'm gonna pick my nose.
embarrassing, and
Oh
like, oh
crap!
god,
I'm
they
on
see me
video.
do it. Tops of heads, if you can read this, tell me to look up.
Yeah.
So, moving on though, I think to one of the other issues that kind of encapsulates a lot of stuff is this presence or connectedness that we mentioned earlier. The ability to feed off of each other's energy, to recognize body language, and connect and see people's natural reactions without interrupting. For instance, one of the things I miss most about playing live is like DMing. Player feedback when you're DMing, being able to pull out some giant monster and then people go like, "Oh no," and that doesn't interrupt because on mic that very much interrupts. They're like, "Oh no," and you're like
Yeah.
trying to talk and now you hear nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But in real life, that doesn't like interrupt really, just for them to say something and then you're
Yeah.
like, immediate feedback.
You can see if they're scared or if they're like, "Oh, it's one of these," and then you can be like, "Oh, that's your reaction, huh? Let's add 30, 40 health to that guy."
I'm suddenly gonna add a bunch of mimics to this fight for some reason.
Yeah, no, it's
How
a
dare
mood.
you?
It helps create the mood as well as for everyone else, but also for the DM to better get into a rhythm of storytelling, I think.
Yeah, and for players as well. Like, if I'm going into some dramatic backstory thing about my character, it's really tough sometimes when all I'm greeted with is silent mics because no one wants to interrupt me. I mean, I can't see any expressions. No one wants to interrupt me and stuff, and I'm just sitting there being like, "And this is super sad," and then it's like cricket,
Yeah.
cricket, cricket, cricket.
And you can't see if like someone's like, "Oh, that is really sad," but when they queue up, they're in character and they're like the complete opposite. Like, this is stupid. Like, you're getting only what they say without that video and not seeing the behind the scenes of the player, which is important to distinguish that there are two different things happening. There's a player and a character.
Yeah, and I think it helps for energy as well. Like you can feed off of each other's excitement. When one person is excited about something or they're really into something, and you're watching them be excited about it, it helps you be excited about it. But if you're just staring at a blank screen with a map on it,
Yeah,
it doesn't necessarily do much for you. The excitement of their voice.
Yeah.
Is one of those things that video helps with, if you can get it to work. I do think. Go ahead.
I was like, we've had moments, I think, when we were doing video with yours where, another player and me, as something was presented to us or something was said, we both had the same out of character reaction and thought process. And we're like typing in Discord the same exact thing at the same time. And they both went off at the same time. And we could see each other's feedback, recognizing that happened. And we like both smile and like you get the extra amount of fun out of it.
Yeah, I was about to say I do think you can get that with text to some degree. Messaging, having like a group chat, talking in that while you're playing and stuff. I think you can at least get some of that in there without video. You can have some back and forth and stuff, and I think that helps keep people engaged too. It can be distracting,
Yes.
but it can also help to keep people engaged with the game and cracking jokes and stuff, because those are the things I would be like. I try to focus on the story and stuff, even in live games and online and everything, but I can't help it. I've always been the person to have to make some crack about something that comes out, and I feel like every table does it. Every group has people, usually half of them at least, if not everyone, just the storyteller breaks out something and they're like, "Oh, that's what you decided to name that NPC, huh?"
Yeah, yeah.
What?
Our group in
What's
particular,
what's the
we're
problem with Jeremy, my ball? My ball. That's his name. My ball. Oh shit.
yeah, yeah. Our group gets into it with Discord, at least, like the typing while things are going on, just because it's hard to to be in the moment when we can't see everyone, and it's our way of escaping and to reacting to what's going on because you can't see us.
Yeah. In some ways, typing jokes and stuff in chat is actually less distracting, I think, than in tabletop where you have only the option to say it out loud, and then everyone
Yeah,
cracks up, and then the game is literally paused for 2 seconds,
or longer.
or longer. And I do think it's okay, not a lot, but it's okay sometimes to give an occasional short verbal response to something that happens in game to try and imbue some of that reactionary aspect. Um, like it's usually hard to do it consciously, because most of the time we're consciously trying not to talk over each other and stuff. We're trying to keep comms a little bit clear, so that people can talk actual RP stuff. But like, for instance, in our last session of your game, you sprung a giant shipwreck mimic on us.
Yes.
Which was particularly funny for me because in one of my sessions ages ago that I ran, y'all went into a cave that turned into a giant mimic that tried to eat you. So my character goes in there and touches this thing and gets stuck to it, and I was just immediately was still like talking and was like, no, you did not. No.
Yeah. I knew going into it what I was doing and what it
Yeah.
would rebound to.
So I think, still throwing some of those verbal responses in there. Again, being courteous. Like, you're probably not being courteous because you're probably interjecting over someone when you're like, you're a prick. But being courteous
Yeah.
enough to be like, you're a prick, and then immediately shut up. So that they can finish talking. Done not to death, done on occasion. Done sparingly can be probably okay. Perhaps even helpful.
Yeah.
My other big thing was distractions. Playing online. For instance, I know we have some people in our group that will open video games during play.
Not me.
Not me. I don't do it because I know it irks me. Especially it irks me only a little bit if somebody does it but is still paying attention. It's when someone is delayed in response or something, and I'm sitting there like, I bet you're playing a game. I know it. I know what you're doing right now. I'm watching.
Yep. Yep. Or you hear the frantic typing.
Oh yeah, that's already that's irritation up to 11 immediately. You hear, and I'm like, the hell are you playing?
Yeah. That came up this week actually. Not for
really?
my campaign. During yours, my girlfriend was sitting next to me and she was like, "Is so and so playing? Is he there tonight?" It's like, "Yeah." Well, why is he logged in?
I don't have Steam and stuff up. Like, I'll have it open, but it's like minimized and everything, so I don't notice when people are in games. I try not to look, so that way I won't get irritated unless I notice something like, we ask them something and they take way too long to respond, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah. And that's where cameras especially can help, because when it's on you, you kind of have to like be there and present
a little bit.
You can't just like disappear and no one's going to know you're not responding because you think it's a good time to go to the bathroom because no one's talking to you, which people do. I'm guilty of it. But when the camera's there, you have to pay attention more.
I was laughing because the man said at a campaign almost a decade ago had a rule that the DM couldn't browse Reddit. My problem is not me browsing Reddit, though I will admit sometimes I have open Twitter. Usually if somebody else is really like engaged in something or somebody's monologuing for ages, then I'll be like, all right, this does not involve me. I'm opening Twitter. I'm doing stuff. But usually it's me. browsing Giphy and finding
Yes.
GIFs to use in response to stuff, because the whole time we're playing tabletop, especially if I'm playing. Now, if I'm DMing, I pre-open a couple of GIFs, but then I don't look for new ones. But if I'm playing, I'll sit there and they're like, and the giant squid monster came up out of the water, and I'm like, Giphy, squid monster.
Yeah.
Bah! Let's just go throw something in Discord real quick.
Yeah, we all do it. It's our way of reacting to the situation without interrupting, as best as we can, at least.
Yeah, it's always a matter of how distracted someone is. Like
Yeah.
browsing your Twitter real quick for 2 minutes is not the same thing as being engrossed into World of Warcraft or something. That's and just like playing like mahjong or something isn't as bad as something you can pause isn't as bad as sitting there trying to play Halo. I don't think we've ever had that, but I'm just saying that would be like, really?
Yeah.
So I was looking at I actually had a list of things about video. Because video isn't always feasible, as we've said.
Right.
There's a lot of technical issues. Some people don't like to be on video. And I think one of the things we can talk about that people can do, though, aside from asking chat for any other tips or tools or life hacks they have for playing online, is what you can do to capitalize on the strengths of playing on a PC, of playing online. And for many of these, you probably need a virtual tabletop platform like Roll20, Fantasy Grounds, etc. But there's so many things you could do on the computer that don't necessarily fix problems per se, but just help to enrich the experience in other ways.
Yeah. I think one of the more likely ways is in the form of combat in any system is art, or the use of art is a digital medium, typically, especially now, Photoshop and whatever, 3D modeling, all that kind of stuff transitions directly into these online virtual platforms in ways that would be maybe cost prohibitive to do it outside of that. You might have to print cool digital art out, go to Staples or something and, do something, or do the really cool TV, into the table thing. And that's just a lot of effort.
Yeah.
This makes that so much less so.
Player icons, art for your characters, background imagery for maps and battlegrounds, or just social scenes, having cool images for the scene you're in to kind of help set the mood, images for monsters and mobs and props. In real life, if you want a prop, you have to go and make something. You have to go make a goblet or buy one or something. But online, you can find a picture of one that works. You can Photoshop something up, and you can be like, here's your thing. I was laughing because one of the perks the man mentioned is having the player. It is easier to schedule online most of the time. People don't have to drive. Also, having books and things open in another window.
Rules, super handy. Control F, find, rule, blah, blah, blah.
Absolutely. Like, in live play, if I have to look up a rule, I very much weigh, like, is it worth looking this up for me to open the book? Whereas online, I'm almost inclined to just immediately go, sure, I'll look it up. Type it up real fast. Bam, there it is.
It's super resource efficient. You can have a lot of the common rules that might get used that you might still never remember fully written up and hand out to everyone, but that's paper and printing, and in at least Roll20, I'm sure other platforms, you can just one little thing and share it with everyone. They all have access to it. Pull it up, take it down.
Storyteller Tools.
Yeah.
Google Spreadsheets is what I use. Google Sheets is what I use for storytelling. I have my Google Sheet for our D&D game has like 20 tabs. There's a session tab at the beginning, which is basically my storyteller screen, which has a row of common rules and things. It has a list of things I think are likely to happen during the session and some information related to those. Some notable NPCs I think might come up. Some random NPC names in case I need to grab one real quick and I just blank and don't think of one. But then I also have I have a tab. We're based in Eberron for this game. I have a tab for every major city that I've created. There's a tab for Sharn. There's a tab for Rote. There's a tab for, and they have tavern locations we've created. I don't have to have cue cards or something. If somebody's like, "What was the name of that tavern we went to?" I'm like, "Hold on, it was this," because I can't remember crap.
Super helpful. Mine is a little more time consuming than that, but it's still digital and easy to find via a quick Google Drive search if you know what you're looking for.
Yeah, and I also have a Google Doc that has major story stuff in it, like stuff about people's characters, stuff about the main story arcs and everything. And I kind of use that as I have it up every session, but I don't normally need to look stuff up in it. It's just there, and I usually use that to port stuff over into the sheet. But I have a system, and I have all these cool tools and things.
And you could still do some of that at the table for the DM, but expressing that to the players probably couldn't receive that as easily at the table as it is so accessible on the computer.
Yeah. Another one is not my last one, is music and sounds. You can have those in person if you pull out your phone or you hook up a speaker or something, but it's pretty convenient and easy to have it. Most of the platforms have music built in some capacity. Roll20, it's kind of sketchy how it does it. I keep waiting for them to get some copyright charges or something, because I'm you just let people upload music to your site.
Yeah.
But they're getting away with it so far. But yeah, you can have music and stuff on there, and you can play different both music or background effects or sound effects and things in a way that's a little bit easier, I think, than in person, especially since people can customize their own volume levels online.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there are programs. I know some of the professional streamers who do tabletop use them. Matt Mercer, some of the other ones, I know their names, I forget them at the top of my head. They use very specific programs where you can queue multiple things happening at the same time, but that's a very, very specific program, and you typically have to buy them.
Yeah.
With just using the platform stuff, you can mix and match a few things that might be free or very low in cost and get the same effect, which is nice. The only thing I don't like about the audio online is that latency issue we talked about, the connection and not knowing between everyone's different setups, whether they're headphones or speakers, volumes change in between all of those. And what sounds good to you, the DM running that may be too loud for others or whatnot. But then you have the individual volume, which is nice as well.
Yeah.
At least at the table, when you're playing it, everyone's hearing the same exact thing at the same exact time. There's no issues.
Yeah. I will say, when I'm playing live at a table, it depends on the game, but I don't usually use music or sound effects. It's just too much of a hassle for me to have my screen and all my notes and then a phone that I have to flip through and find sounds and music and stuff. I'm either not going to do something, or I'm probably going to pull out a atmospheric playlist that I've put together, play that, and it's just going to cycle the whole game.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have different things for different scenes and stuff, whereas online, I will. Because it's just, I go click, and I'm done.
Yeah. And unless you have a really nice speaker setup that's tied in some fancy, cool, hands-off kind of way where you can have control over that, you're probably looking at some sort of real estate usage to have something play that, which you may not have.
Yeah. Now, one thing I have found nice live is if you have a TV nearby, especially if it's a smart TV, opening it up to like Spotify or something, having your playlist in there, and then playing it so it's audible, but it's also in the background. It's not like right next to your table, which is nice because then it's not drowning over you, but it's back there. You can hear it. But again, I'm very much not gonna be flipping tracks and stuff situationally for that. I'm gonna have it going,
Right.
playing a playlist, and that's it.
Everyone brings their own funyuns and do at the table. Yes.
For sure. That is actually something I miss about playing at a table, playing live. I mean, the last time I regularly had a live group was back in like college, undergrad. But yeah, that was always a thing in high school and in college. That was a thing generally. Like you bring snacks. And so it
Yeah.
was a whole event. You would be there with snacks and soda and all kinds of stuff that I can't eat now. We're having pizza and Funyuns. That's what we're doing.
You can maybe imitate that a little bit with everyone sharing. What are you eating for dinner tonight while we play online? And
Though we're in different time zones usually for our group.
yeah,
So
that's true.
some of us are like, I just finished eating. And some of us are like, I wish I were eating right now.
Yeah.
My last thing I had for this is for video playing to the strengths of, well, still not really the last thing, but my last big main thing I have for playing to the strengths of playing online is easy multitasking to some extent.
Yes.
Because you can message to people. Now, I get annoyed by this sometimes when I'm DMing or storytelling, and people are like trying to message me stuff, and they're like, "I want to do this," and I'm like trying to do something else, and then I'm like, "Hold on a minute."
Guilty.
I do sometimes get distracted by like the group chat in Discord, and I'm like trying to ignore it, and it's going ping, 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 and I'm like, stop it. Like, I'm trying to focus on what I'm saying. It's dramatic, and I'm hearing ping, 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 ping.
You
But
have ways around that as well.
Yeah.
Mute that channel in particular.
I need to. But it can also be useful. Like when somebody's engaging in one thing and you want to go message one player and be like, first of all, passing secrets and stuff instead of being like, I'm going to come whisper to you.
Super
like,
beneficial.
You learn this thing. But also, like, you can straight up just be like kind of having a little bit of side RP activity with someone while the main group is doing stuff, and you could be over there going, like, if this happens, what do you do? Okay, now this happens, what do you do?
Yeah, no, we have a player in mind who has a ring that has a soul in it, who can telepathically communicate with the person wearing the ring, and that is a good portion. It's not like it distracts from anything. There's a lot of conversation that happens while RP is happening because he's responding to her thoughts in her thinking about what you guys are doing as well. So there's a lot of that element that you guys don't even realize or see. At least you know it's happening at this point.
We're going to destroy that thing
because it's been made aware that it's a thing, but you don't know what's being said. And it's so easy to just message instead of getting up out of the table every time this character or personality has something to respond with.
Yeah,
it makes it so much easier.
One day she's going to wake up and find that Rohan has dispelled her ring. I don't like this thing.
If only dispelled magic worked that way.
So the one thing I wanted to add to this thing about the strengths of playing online is just to kind of summarize all these points about these different strengths really in what they really contribute, I think, largely is setting the atmosphere for playing online is actually quite a bit easier in many ways than setting it in person. I think you can do it better in person. Like, you can have a more dramatic effect setting the scene and setting the atmosphere, but it takes a lot more work. Like you
Yeah.
can't easily kind of do it. So like online, you can't ever quite get it as good as you can in person, where you could go all out. You could have lighting, you could have mood lighting, you could have all kinds of stuff, but that's a big
Dim the
investment.
lights.
Yeah, that's a big investment of effort and time and
Yeah,
possibly
for
money.
sure.
Whereas online, you can use music, background imagery, prop images, monster art. For instance, setting a horror scene. You could put up a background image of a rickety manor house. Have some tense and persistent music in the background to help elevate tension. Every now and then, a grandfather clock strikes in the background. And when they find like a weird occult ritual scene, you can actually have an image of a goblet filled with blood that you put on the screen to show them what they found. Uh, Immediately and very easily helping to evoke some atmosphere. Whereas in person, to do all of that would have taken way more effort,
Yeah,
way more time. Even if you used an image of the goblet, you got to print it out or something, or put it on your phone and be like, "Hey, everybody, look at my thing."
right.
Or like you said
Or
earlier, have a table with a TV in it.
yeah, and lacking that, maybe your party comes up to a stone door with the etching or engraving of some sort of draconic symbolage, and you place a stone inside of a hole that lights the whole symbol up, and you can talk about it. Or if you know After Effects and are really good creatively with online play, you can actually create a video of it and show it to people and GIF it and play it on cue and have it ready. You can't do that
That was
again
awesome,
without.
but slightly excessive.
Yeah, like there's a work, there's a time and energy input to that certainly exists far more than at the table does. But to do it at the table, I think costs more money.
Oh yeah, yeah. When you did that with the door, I was like, "What?" Also, why? This is awesome. How
It's
much
like
time
six
did you
seconds
spend
of
on
the
this?
thing, and it's like an hour to do it. It's like, but it's gonna be so cool.
But that's
Yep.
also like for you, that takes like an hour to make. For me, that would have taken days. So
Yeah, there's a cost benefit analysis to, can I do it quickly? Can I not? At what point
yeah,
is this too much? But if you are very creative and know your programs like that, online platforms are super, super wide for what you can do with the stuff you're good at.
it was awesome though. So is there anything else? Because my connection is now again saying Twitch is unstable.
Uh-oh.
Uh, I don't have any other things. I think we've covered quite a bit.
I think those are kind of the main points. There are a lot of things you can do for both. The storytelling exists, period, whether you're on online or
Yeah.
at the table. That's a thing that you can build up towards without worry, unless your internet crashes in the middle of streaming or something. Um, Otherwise, all these other elements, there are a lot of pros to one, a lot of pros to the other, cons for both. I kind of like the online thing personally, only because I can't say I've ever done in person. That'll be a new thing for me at some point. This is all I know, really.
Yeah, online is a lot more convenient. It's easier to put together. It's convenient in a lot of ways. It's actually better for some people, especially people with disability who can't get around as easily, may have mobility issues and stuff. Online can be the only option for them, or a
Yeah.
far more convenient one. But there are definitely some things about playing in person that are hard to replicate online, and I miss a lot. But online doesn't have to be necessarily inferior on the whole. It can still be a very good experience because there's a lot of positives, a lot of really strong things you can do if you put some time and effort into them. Looking up images, preparing some music and things that aren't too hard, especially if you're like me and you know places where people will post battle maps and stuff. I don't even make all my own battle maps. I know places where people will post their battle maps for you to use and stuff, and I just
Patreon
if it's appropriate, I'd be like yoink.
Yeah, Patreon to one good source with years of content that you get access to. Get the content, and then if you feel like maybe you can't subscribe the next month, don't.
I have paid for like 6 months of Patreon subscription to download a bunch of maps and be like, hey, I got a bunch of maps.
Yeah.
And then I finally went, all right, I got enough maps. I'm done paying you now. I don't.
And a little amount of money for Patreon, even if you sub every month, which you should, if you're using their content, it's a fair thing for them. They put a lot of work into it. But the smallest amount of money, I think I pay like $5 a month, not on top of Roll20, to have access to play YouTube anythings in Discord for us, so I can have music on Roll20 going and sound effect ambient specifics on Discord. And a little bit of money can go, whether it's that or other things, can really go a long way to just improving the mood on mine.
Yep. And there are other tools that you can use, that some of which cost money, some of which don't, or some which cost very little. You can use Dungeon Fog, which does cost money, and I've used that for a while to make some maps. I don't necessarily love the system, but it's better than a lot of other ones. There's also Flowscape, which I really like to use for outdoor scenes and any kind of terrain and stuff. It can be really good for that. And it's now on Steam, and it's not that expensive. It's just a one-time charge for stuff. Whereas it was way cheaper when I got it, because I got it when it was still on a different website. But yeah. But anyway, so I think we've pretty well covered a lot of stuff. So thanks for hanging out with us, everybody, talking about some of your own tips and tricks and stuff. And I'll be streaming Friday and Sunday, probably Cyberpunk for at least one of those, until I'm close to beating it on my stream playthrough. And we'll stream this again in 2 weeks. I will also very soon, in about 2 weeks, start being on Tabletop to Keyboards stream, as they are streaming a new Zweihander game. So you can check that out on their Twitch channel, not my Twitch channel, though I do host their Twitch channel, so it'll, same thing.
Are you doing a live character creation this week?
It's not this week. I honestly don't remember which week it is, because I'm terrible.
But it is live when it happens, right?
Yeah, it will be live on their channel. We'll be creating characters, rolling randomly characters, because that's how you do it in Zweihander. So we'll see how that goes. I think it's the 28th. And at that point, my Sunday streams will kind of start alternating. But anyway, thanks for hanging out, everybody. And remember, if it's a Zoom call, it's probably not a mimic.